Okay, Pat, it's Reusse Unchained, presented by Josh Arnold, investment consultant, Mr. Money Talk, and you've watched a lot of sports in your lifetime. Decades and decades of sports
Yes.
controversies and outrages. Where do you rank among all sports outrages that you've ever covered Caitlin Clark's snub of the Olympic team?
It is one of the most stupid outrages we've ever had. I would say it ranks highly. I never even thought she had a chance. I mean, she was given more consideration than I thought she was going to get. She's not one of the 20 best players in the league at this moment. We don't. It's not a popularity contest naming an NBA, naming a WNBA team. Now you could say Brittany Griner. I think we're sending a message to the world that if they get thrown in a Russian prison, you can recover from that and come back. I think it's a big middle finger to Putin having her on the team, and I applaud that fully. And also, Taurasi is going to be she's a historic figure in women's basketball, much more so than Caitlin Clark. And she can do something that's never been done before. And yeah, neither of them have to be the key players on that team. Now, supposedly, somebody reported, I don't know, one of the guys might just be throwing it out there, but that she's the first alternate, and somebody probably will get hurt. That Chelsea Gray hasn't played hardly at all, so she could still end up there. And if she does, by the way, it'll look like they caved in completely to Christine Brennan and the rest of the Christine Brennan, now at USA Today, Washington Post for years, affectionately known as Aunt B in the Olympic movement, is outraged, completely outraged, mainly because she wants somebody to read her stuff when she goes to the Olympics. I think it's, to me, it's ridiculous. And hey, this coming from the guy that discovered Caitlin Clark. Okay, I discovered
You're the
her. I was
founder.
the
You're the
I'm the
founder and
founder of the
CEO of.
phenomenon, but I don't think she should be on the team. No, I don't. I think it's now had they put her on the team, that wouldn't have been an outrage either. I don't think, but
Yeah.
I never expected her. Should she be on the team instead of Nafisa Collier? No, I don't think so.
Do you know what's funny about all this? It's there's like everyone's having these little micro arguments about even when you watch the highlights of these games. The other night, was it last night? Caitlin Clark gets kind of bumped coming off a screen and kind of
Yes.
does the Chris Paul thing, and the
Yeah.
defender mocks her. And now we're
Yeah.
now we're in this micro conversation about how these players mock her. But if you zoom out to the macro, I saw this post from someone on Joe Pompliano on social yesterday. The WNBA sent a release out saying attendance is up 156% year over year. TV ratings are up almost triple from last year's average. WNBA countdown, so the ESPN pregame show is up 211%. So while we have these little discussions about is she being disrespected, this or that, all of this is great for women's basketball and the
Oh, certainly.
WNBA, and the ratings and the attendance and everything is showing it.
If she hadn't gotten mugged, what would the ratings been for those 2 days? Because everybody went to watch her get mugged once again from then to see Angel Reese over on the sideline celebrating the fact that she got mugged, and that whole controversy. But the WNBA is I think it is not strictly because of her. I think it is more popular than it was 5 years ago. But she's been the motivator. All that's true, but it has nothing to do with selecting the Olympic team. It cannot be a popularity contest, the choosing the Olympic team. And I was there when they took Leitner. Now they had to take Leitner in '92. They treated him like a pariah, as they should have, because he was a jackass. But they 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 the women's team, if Caitlin was on it, could not treat her with more disrespect than Leitner was treated in 1992 by those guys. They just ignored him, and when they had scrimmages, they'd just attack him, and go after him and try to embarrass him. And we had full access to the Dream Team back then. We go to watch all their practices and stuff down in the San Diego arena, and you could hear them talking to them, and it was fantastic. But I mean, she's God Almighty, she's gotten more respect than any athlete in the history of women's sports. So what's the problem here? She doesn't belong on the Olympic team. I think if she ends up on it, fine, because they caved in. That's okay. But they're not wrong too. When if indeed part of this is people are going to get very upset when she's on the team and then she only plays 5 minutes. Now
She'll get
she might,
garbage time when they're up by
yeah,
60 points
yeah,
on Trinidad and Tobago or
yeah.
whoever.
That's the thing. They're going to kick the hell out of everybody, so she'll get to play in meaningless garbage time. But beyond the Iowa farmers who were on the bandwagon with her from the beginning, where did these people come from? What is this? I mean, why is it such a phenomenon? I don't get it.
Yeah, why of all the players who've come through women's and I get like she broke the scoring record and all these
Yeah.
things, but it is interesting that she has become the lightning rod that other players who are also great in their own way. Here's another one I just found. WNBA online merchandise. They've already set a single season sales record with 4 months to go in the season. Sales are up almost 800% in the WNBA online store for jerseys and shirts and hats, hooded sweatshirts, whatever.
And probably, by the way, our Fever got hammered again last night, right?
Coach was upset. She ripped the players.
She basically said you can't, if you have to coach effort, then you're screwed.
But here's the other thing the WNBA did. They gave her and the Fever the worst schedule in the history. They've already played like 14 games or something. Didn't they haven't played 11 games in 17 days or something?
Yes.
So they could take advantage of her getting TV ratings. I mean, they treated her much worse than the other players did. They never gave them a chance to breathe, for God's sakes. I think the best thing that could happen to her, and Judd and I talked about this yesterday, go to a private island for 3 weeks during the Olympics, sit on the beach, don't talk to anybody, don't even talk to your parents if they call you, just sit on the beach and have a good time and relax. I don't care how high energy you are, you can't handle this. Can you handle this much attention?
You ever see, like, because she does these media scrums, she does the podium post game, but then she'll do on the off days at practice, the media shows up.
Yes.
And I mean, and she's handled it all very well, and she's been a pro, but she looks like she wants to be anywhere else but at practice and in front of those microphones and cameras answering these questions right now. And I'm not ripping her. I think I agree with you. You just got done with this grind of a college basketball season.
And women's college basketball, you don't get any break. The season ends in end of April. I mean, end of March. And the draft is 2 weeks later, and then they want you to be at practice by the end of April. Aren't we worried about these kids' education? Aren't we worried about them getting what's wrong with the WNBA? They're supposed to graduate, aren't they? They all have to drop out of school early to go play.
They're being paid now.
Get
Who
the
cares?
credits, huh?
They're being paid now. Who cares? Coyle talked about how they're going to have a huge now fund where they're going to have to pay players from. So I mean, school's done. You don't have to go to school.
Chip was talking to him, and it's like they're the non-revs. If they don't get dropped, they're going to have no scholarships now. How about that? We had a story today. They dropped the gymnastics program, so it becomes full funded. Now they throw them out of that dumpy place at Cook Hall. They just don't want them around anywhere, so they can let the swimmers do their dry land training. They threw them out of their facility at Cook Hall. They're unbelievable. What's going to happen with the non-rev? What college athletics is nothing that's familiar to us right now, and it's going to get worse.
No, does it surprise you that, because we talked about this last week, that Dan Hurley decided to go back to UConn?
No.
The Lakers kind of lowballed him, actually. He would have been the 6th highest paid coach in the NBA.
Well,
They didn't
6
make him an
years,
offer that he couldn't refuse, I guess.
6 years, 42
70.
million. 6 years, 70. Are there that many coaches making more than 15 a
So
year?
Steve Kerr, so Steve Kerr makes 17.5 million as the highest paid head coach. And then there's 4 others or 5 others that would have made more than Hurley.
He had to have a bunch of buddies in the game who've dealt and said, you don't want to go try to coach LeBron. I heard a good discussion on this the other day. As soon as you do something to offend old LeBron, all the insiders of the NBA, it'll controversy. You'll coach your first regular season game on October 25th, and then by Thanksgiving, it'll be a complete mess. Plus, his attitude, he's a screamer and a hollerer and a yeller and an intimidator with his players. That's not going to work. I mean, if he's smart enough to say the hell with it. He might do it. He might do it sometime 4 or 5 years from now. But I'm not surprised that he said no. I'm not. I mean, I think he's a pretty smart guy, and he's a builder. That's for sure. He won back-to-back titles with 2 different teams. It's amazing.
He gets a nice raise now too. I would take it.
Oh yeah, you kind of support him, but I'm not. Yeah, I wouldn't cut. There was a time when you loved to coach a team with LeBron, right? Because he was the best in the world. He's no longer the best in the world. He misses 25 games, and he's a pain in the ass. So he's gonna
I agree.
he's gonna think he should run the team. And now you're supposed to draft Bronny, who can't play, who Bronny, who wouldn't be in the top 8 at UConn. And now you're going to have to get him minutes playing for the Lakers. They're going to have to draft him to make LeBron happy. Or is he a free agent?
He has an opt-out. So this morning, Adrian Wojnarowski reported LeBron is very likely to opt out, become a free agent, put some pressure on the Lakers, but then he expects that LeBron goes back to the Lakers. Also, Anthony Davis he played 76 games for the first time in his career he's ever played that many games. You can't really rely on him too now that he's in his 30s.
No, and you're I good for Hurley. I think it was a very wise decision. So I got a question for you if we're done with basketball here.
Sure, yeah.
How can the Colorado Rockies have the 27th best hitting in the major leagues playing in Coors Field? This is physically impossible, isn't it? Isn't it impossible? I mean, the outfielders have to play 20 feet deeper than they do in any other ballpark, which means every bloop you hit's a hit.
Did you look at the lineup last night, Patrick?
I know.
Charlie Blackmon.
Charlie Blackmon's still in the league.
The only guy I could name in that, I swear to God, I picked up the score sheet. I looked at, and I said, I know one player.
Who does Bud Black have photos of, too? They've had like five straight losing seasons, and I mean bad losing seasons. Terrible. Last year they won 3 in a row. They ended up drawing like 2 million. I mean, the people were coming to the games, and they just have ruined a complete mess. And I can't believe they're that bad, though, that they can't, because for years we looked at any offensive statistics from there and figured they were inflated now. Mm-hmm. So these are inflated offensive statistics, and they're 26th or 7th in baseball scoring.
What does that say about our guy, Charlie Blackmon? Charlie Blackmon's got 2 home runs playing in that ballpark, right? Man. No, man.
Get a haircut, Charlie, for God's sake. You're an adult now. You're 37 years old. You aren't some young hippie from San Francisco in the 1960s, for God's sake. Get a haircut. Look like a veteran leader instead of some guy you want to give $5 to when you walk by him on the street.
$5? You're
get
nice.
a haircut. Get a haircut like me here. Come on, get a.
Exactly.
We're about the same age, Charlie. Let's get let's tighten it up. But Chris Paddack's pretty good against bad teams, isn't he?
He is You can look real good. I love when Chris Paddack refers to it. So we were in the post game yesterday, and I actually, in terms of guys in post game pressers and quotes, Chris Paddack is up there. He's great, but he loves to refer to himself in the third person, which I also thoroughly enjoy.
I love that. I love that.
So he said when Chris Paddack got shelled last week, Chris Paddack wasn't going to let that happen again. It was great. It was awesome.
I was trying to think, who's our last great third person?
Herschel Walker was great.
Herschel was the greatest. Yeah, Herschel was our greatest ever. You don't get many of those great third person talkers anymore. So
no, it takes real confidence to speak in the third person like that, especially when you're on the verge of like a fake IL stint, which he probably was if he got shelled by the Rockies.
He was throwing 90. It was the hardest he's thrown all year. He was throwing almost 98. He had made a mechanical tweak. Cole Sands gave him some advice.
I love this story that he got tips from Cole Sands.
Cole Sands, his pitching coach.
What a poor reflection that is on poor whispering Pete Mackey that he's getting. I dropped Pete as my advisor. I'm using Cole Sands.
Pete, you got to speak up. He was trying to say the same thing as Cole, but Chris couldn't hear him.
I can't hear you whispering. I've missed Pete whispering. No, he's not. What do they got a different communication system now? Because he's not doing this all.
He's doing this again now. He's still coming up to the mound and doing this when he talks.
I didn't see him go out there. I don't know if he went out
there. There's no way you can hear him when he does that, right? Even with it's not like we're packing 40,000 people in that stadium, but if there's even like 10 or 12,000 people buzzing and there's music playing, and your pitching coach comes out and does this, right? You just sort of nod, smile, and throw a curveball on the first pitch.
Speaking of Twins pitching coaches, Wes did not make it to the College World Series. His Georgia team. Last year, of course, he was the pitching coach at LSU. He had Stennis, and they won the College World Series. But his Georgia team got beat last night. And the funny thing about that Georgia team this year is they beat everybody 14-11. His pitching was terrible, but they got beat last night. The College World Series, get fired up here in the Upper Midwest, folks. 4 ACC teams, 4 SEC teams in the Southeastern Conference.
How about that?
Many years ago, John Anderson recommended a Northern CWS and a Southern CWS, and I think he might be right. Huh?
Yeah. So how would we do that? What would we do with like the West Coast teams? If you're UW, would you be in the Northern College World Series, or would we just be talking about the Big Ten teams playing?
Yeah, right.
I think he's talking about the Big Ten tournament, actually.
Yeah, and what's left of the Pac-12, which is Washington State and Oregon State. Okay, Oregon State.
So that dissolves for baseball too, right? So those baseball programs have to travel just like the football teams, right?
Well,
I don't know what they're going to do.
Big Ten baseball might be in trouble here long term, going back to what you were talking about, Pat.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Now some of them have a pretty good investment in baseball. We don't have one, but some of them have like Penn State has spent millions of building up a baseball program. And but you're right. I mean, this is now what he's trying to tell us is this lawsuit means you have to pay every athlete you got some stipend at least, and then the NIL money's on top of that, right?
The NIL will be separate.
Here's the other thing. I'm out raising money for the programs and then raising money for NIL. Well, if I'm giving you 100,000, you're getting 100,000. You're not getting more than that, are you? I mean, these companies, we think these big companies are should give to NIL and should give to the athletic department. They got to make a choice here. Plus, here's the difference between FedEx and Memphis. FedEx is, tied 100% to Memphis. They're promoting Memphis. These big companies, 3M's paying off an ungodly number of lawsuits for polluting water and stuff. They're laying off people. You think all of a sudden they're going to give $5 million to the University of Minnesota for their NIL fund? You idiots! They're not going to do that. For God's sakes.
I know. Yeah. How much? I'm trying to find how much do like the SEC and ESPN a few years ago did a big 10-year deal for college football.
Mm-hmm.
There it is. It was a $3 billion deal over 10 years. I don't know how that equates to some of the I mean, the NBA is about
On
to
the
strike
program.
a 7. What is it? Just an absurd deal. But my question is, where does all of that money go to? Because you're not paying any of the players. You're paying the head coaches make a lot of money. So we're sitting here, man, we got to get more outside investments and more, but their TV deals are billions of dollars.
Monsters, yes. Well, they're because you got football programs that are trying to spend every nickel of it because they're the motivator for it. And as Chip's story today said, and Judd and I were talking about this, they're going to get rid of the 85 scholarship limit. You're going to be able to go back to the days of 110 and 120. And then you're going to have Fleck storming in, knocking on the door. We need another 25 scholarships. And, and then they're going to be guys that are going to be one and done because they aren't playing. And
it's going to be like St. John's where you have 4 guys wearing the number 11.
Right, right. You got, 210 players. And out of that, 180 of them just run down the hill every Saturday. They don't get to go to road games. They
it's
sit
hilarious.
on the sidelines and play frisbee. You should see a practice up there back in the Gallardi days. There was like the 20 guys he cared about out on the field. The other guy just milling around, walking around in the woods, smoking dope or something. I don't know. They never. Gallardi's practice used to be the 15 offensive players would report like the first 4 or 5 days, and then the 15 defensive players. And then he'd have the whole mob show up when the school started, but he didn't want to feed them, before then. So he just fed the 30 or 40 guys he cared about that were going to play.
Yeah.
They were the only guys there for the pre.
The rest of you can resort to cannibalism for all I care.
That's right. He didn't want to feed 220 guys for God's sakes. So anyway.
Well, Pat, we got to run to a scoop session here, but we appreciate you. I think calming the flames of the Caitlin Clark controversy today.
Oh man, it's I really think a lot of people are just doing it. If Stephen A. Smith would have been the opposite if they'd put her on the team. He would have been the opposite. How can
I love Stephen A. Smith is now just like going at his female co-hosts and coworkers saying, if not for my platform, no one would know who you are and some of the stuff, man.
Okay. But isn't he now pro Caitlin?
Yeah, he's very much he thinks it's one of the dumbest decisions in the history of sports.
And if they put her on the team, he would have been how could they put this white girl on the team? Well, I don't get it. So anyway, it's an easy issue to be on either side. You can't be right. So all righty. See you.
All right,
guys.
Pat. We'll catch you later this week. Reusse Unchained, presented by Josh Arnold.